Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your hosts, Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn. Aaron, how are we doing tonight?
It's weird to hear you say hosts because you've been holding the fort down this whole time, man. But I'm glad to be back and felt pretty good after that last run last week. And let's see if we can pick up where we left off.
Yeah, I got some good feedback. I thought everything felt pretty normal, pretty natural. It's fun to be able to get the ball rolling. So before we jump into the news, just want to be able to share our presenting sponsor tonight. Again, Uncle Jumbo's Distillery. Really excited to be able to work with a company like that and everything that they've brought. I actually think Aaron and I are going to get a chance to maybe meet out there at their facility at some point here and be able to kind of check out what they have going on, pick up some nice stuff. I can have some of their goodies up here on my shelf to be able to show. So looking forward to meeting them. And again, just a local company doing some good stuff, be able to help you have a good time there in Clarence. But enjoy some of their products. We'll get into a little bit more down the road here when we do our mid-show exciting player spotlight for tonight. But thank you to Uncle Jumbo's. As we get into it tonight, there's not a ton of news from a Bills standpoint, but a couple things. Had two recent signings. One of them is a guy that I can't lie, I wasn't terribly familiar with, but Brian Allen, 5th-round pick out of Pittsburgh. He's a monster for a cornerback. He's 6'3", 215. So, that's mildly interesting.
Yeah, no, the size interests me. I think you might have said it in the Slack channel. It's very Bam Johnson, like a guy that just has some physical traits and hasn't quite figured it out yet in the NFL. So that's a possible interesting prospect. I am in the camp that you can never have enough defensive backs and carrying them on the practice squad. So if he's a guy that can get into the practice squad, you can't have enough of those guys. We don't know the extent of Josh Norman's injury, even though Leslie Frazier said that they're hopeful that he'll be back for the opener. Hopeful isn't sure. So we might be short on defensive back. So they might carry him on the practice squad here heading into the season, just in case things get a little hairy there. You're one injury away from, really depleting the depth at that position. So interesting, something to keep an eye on. And maybe it's just somebody to guard Davis and Duke Williams in practice, because these guys seem to be getting picked on.
Seriously. The only path I could see for him having any shot at the roster would be if for some reason Cam Lewis and Dane Jackson were struggling on special teams and that they were going to maybe be on practice squad or to make the roster, but not active on game day, and they needed a guy to contribute on special teams. I'll give him a 5-10% shot here, but getting signed this late, just these signings, this is when Captain Munnerlyn got signed last year. This is when guys like that for the most part, you're a camp body at this point. So the measurables are intriguing, but I don't expect a whole lot from it. Along those same lines, Antonio Williams, running back that was a UDFA out of North Carolina, was brought back today. And I'm going to guess that that's connected to Zach Moss being in the red non-contact jersey and just needing a body to practice at running back. Do you think there's anything more to it than that?
No, I agree with you. I think they just probably needed an extra body. He was already on this team. He's comfortable. He knows how to get to Buffalo. Just bring him back in. You know what I mean? They'll get him a check. He's coaching. I think guys like that will take any opportunity to get back and show that they still want to play. So I think it's a good thing to have those guys on speed dial, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, they also brought in 4 defensive tackles for a workout, and I wouldn't read into 4 as increased urgency or anything. I think that, hey, if you're going to take probably, Eric Washington out there to be able to do, a workout, you want to have a handful of guys that are going to be engaged in that. So I think they're just doing their homework. I've read mixed reports on Vincent Taylor, some really good ones that he's making some splash plays, but then also getting pushed around in the run game. So maybe they're kicking some tires for, I would guess, a different practice squad option than Taylor, but I doubt it really has any impact on much anything.
Yeah, like you said, this picking up a guy this time of year off the street, especially names you haven't heard of, probably not a guy that they're bringing in to do much. But to the point of the practices, I have seen on some of those they put out the league wide who tried out where, and it does seem like the Bills are running full position groups when they do a run. So I think, to your point, whoever the position coach is, they're just trying to maximize that person's effort. Hey, while we're out here, let's just bring in 4 of these guys and just run them all together. But I wouldn't look much into that, and I'm not worried about the defensive tackle position right now.
Yeah, and the final bit of news, we did have the Bills scrimmage this week. They went on a full first team versus second team offense and defense scrimmage in the stadium. Went through the full thing with introductions, in for halftime, the whole kind of process to go through every single step of it to make it as realistic as they could to what the third preseason game would be like. And from all reports, Josh Allen lit it up. It was 300 yards passing and a rushing touchdown, 2 passing touchdowns, 74% completion percentage. How excited are you, Aaron?
We got to pump the brakes again for a second. I'm not on Twitter, so I probably had
People
a pretty
got
stressful.
very excited.
I'm sure Twitter was lit up. Guys in the Slack send posts of what people are saying. People were taking the stats and using them to discredit other people's opinions of Josh Allen. Look, guys, stats in practice mean nothing. Taking a stat line from practice, yes, it's fun, and yes, it does get the fan base excited, but it means nothing. It was against the twos. The starting offense should light them up. Comparing it, I did see, people videos and people even in the comment sections on our YouTube saying, hey, well, look at the Jets. Well, if that dysfunctional team that is the New York Jets is the standard at which we're celebrating practice, I got bad news for you guys. That's not my standard. The New York Jets are not my standard of where I see the 2020 Buffalo Bills. So I don't care what's happening in the Jets practices, and I do care what's happening in the Bills practices, but I'm not going to get super excited and say Josh Allen's arrived because he threw for 300 yards against the second stringers in a practice environment where he's pretty much set up to succeed in that environment. And then you were telling me prior to this that he didn't have a great day today. So I don't know if all those people that were putting the stat lines in other people's mentions, how quiet they were on Twitter today, but you got to have it both ways. Josh Allen is still a developmental quarterback. As of right now, he's still a bottom of the league starting NFL quarterback, which that's a higher ceiling than any of us anticipated when he came into the league, that his floor, or that's a higher floor than any of us anticipated, that him being a bottom of the league starter, nobody thought that was the floor. So we're excited that that's the floor until he proves it in a real game against real NFL defenses that he can light somebody up. He's going to remain there for a little while, but I think he'll move up from there this year. But I think we got to pump the brakes when it comes to stats coming out from practice. It's fun to see. I get it. I get excited too. We're so close to the season. You want to see the progress he's made in the finished product, but that ain't it.
Yeah. And it's something to be able to look at progress. The way that I approach it is, it's not a bad thing. Like I'm not upset that he looks good. I'm just not overjoyed about it. Like it's good. It's much better than him struggling. And like you said, the Sam Darnold comparisons and the way they struggled, but it doesn't mean all that much. He's scripted to do what he's supposed to do. So that's great. He executed that. And we got to hope that transforms over, and that's what we want to see from an overall standpoint. So we'll figure out where that goes from, long-term impacts and if it matters, but it's certainly not a bad thing. So I'll take it, but we need to see it in real games.
If he has a really good year, though, I'm not going to point at the
it's because
scrimmage as the point at which Josh Allen arrived. That's just not it. We just chill it out a little bit. He'll arrive at some point, but it wasn't in the scrimmage.
Yeah, one piece of actual news that came up, I think I won't speak for you, but I was pretty genuinely surprised that the Bills made formal decisions on their kicking battle, and that the Bills released both Lachlan Edwards and Stephen Hauschka and declared that Tyler Bass is going to be their kicker going into this year, and Corey Bojorquez is going to be the punter, and that that's who I predicted. So I'm not shocked by.
Is that why we're talking about it?
That's for sure why I brought it up. But I was pretty genuinely surprised that they didn't take it out longer. And I'm going to say that it was probably a nod to Stephen Hauschka, who was brought in today for a workout for the Titans, that just to give him a shot to catch on with somebody else. But Heath Farwell spoke pretty glowingly about Tyler Bass. Let's start on the kicking side of it. I know we were both kind of going back and forth on where we felt like the tiebreakers were going to fall. Was it the veteran experience and the trust in someone like Hauschka in such an important season? Was the money and the long-term salary going to make an impact? How surprised were you by this move?
I wasn't super surprised, only because it was something that you and I talked about offline a little bit about. Hauschka needed to win the job. And all the reports that we were seeing from practice, they were kind of neck and neck for a while. One would have a good day, the other one would have a bad day, vice versa. And eventually Hauschka was never really pulling away. And so as we started to end towards the end of camp and he wasn't pulling away with that job and Tyler Bass was sitting right there neck and neck with him, I started to feel a little more uncomfortable in my take of being on Hausch Money's team on this, because he really did need to win the job. He didn't win it outright. I think going into the season with Hauschka, if Bass wasn't on the team, I would feel okay with it. I'm not as down on Hauschka maybe as a lot of fans are. I think he can be he's not the kicker that he once was, but I think he can hover around that 80% field goal. And I think that's probably where Bass is going to end up this year. I think we're going to have something, middle of the league average kicker, and that's okay. So I do agree with you. I think that they did the cut early to give him a chance to get onto a team. He's a captain on this team. We know what that means to Sean McDermott. He was part of that leadership council. So as soon as they knew that this competition was over, they wanted to give him an opportunity to go get on another team. So I think that's a good thing. You hate to see him leave. He did a lot for this team, but I'm excited for the new kid. I like the idea of a live leg. I would have liked the idea of Hauschka being able to hit 50-yarders a year ago. I think that would have helped us in a number of games, including the playoff game. That got a little weird at the end of that game. So it's nice to know you have a guy with a leg that can do it. I don't think big leg's everything. I want to see this guy, in some pressure spots. He had a really good year, his junior year. He was one of the best kickers in the nation. Fell off a lot last year, at least statistically. And I'm not a guy that goes straight by statistics, but I also don't scout kickers. So I have no context for what happened to him last year. I don't know if
there was an article that came out. Yeah, there was an article about a coach that changed his motion and said this would be better for him long term, and he struggled to catch it at first. Sure. So I think that's a reasonable thing to tell yourself, but sure. He still missed.
Yeah, but I think that I trust this staff. I trust Farwell enough to say they're not going to put this kind of trust in a rookie if they don't think that he can at least provide you what Hauschka was going to provide you this year, which again, I think is middle of the road, average NFL kicker, which is probably just off the top of my head, somewhere around 80% field goal percentage kicker. So I'm a little worried that kicking's still going to be something that we talk about a lot on this show throughout the year. I think he's going to have some growing pains in the game. I can't remember the last time a rookie came on and just lit up the league. So I know people like this guy. I know I put out the GIF for you. I'm sure that got a lot of burn on the Twitter box. People are going to like this guy. And I hope he's the Bills kicker for the next 10 to 15 years, because I hate having to constantly rotate through these guys. So I'm happy for the kid. And I hope Hauschka does stick on a team like the Titans. I hope he gets to continue his career as well.
Yeah, and I was even Daniel had commented about the Bears should sign him by now. So I'm sure your brother would chime in.
He texted me as soon as he saw. He's like, "Oh yeah, you got rid of Hauschka. What's his deal?"
And honestly, I think they were in. So we'll get to the other battle in a second. I think the kicker battle was between two starting NFL caliber kickers. Like I don't think that was a settling kind of deal, and that was one where we're now choosing who we think the best guy is, and the other one was going to catch on somewhere. So if they tried to hide Tyler Bass in the practice squad or whatever, I don't think that was going to happen. I think he was going to get snagged. He was most people's number one kicker on a lot of boards, and it was setting up that way. So I agree. I think Hausch is going to end up in Tampa or in New York or in Tennessee or with Chicago. I think he's going to get one of those jobs.
Yeah.
The other side of it, I'd love to be able to say that it's just as equal of a battle and that it's, everything that we want it to be. But the punting battle between Corey Bojorquez and Lachlan Edwards was not what everyone was looking for. A lot of people wanted them to draft a punter. A lot of people wanted them to go and sign someone. Then we kind of convinced ourselves that Corey Vedvik was going to be the guy coming from Norway. And we have Per Erling is in our Slack channel all the time, is from Norway and is very excited about the setup for him.
I'm worried he's going to become a Vikings fan this year.
Yeah, Panthers. I think he went to the Panthers.
Oh, did he
leave us? Yeah, he's going to leave us and go become a Panthers fan. But it's something where I think that there's maybe a little bit more to it than what the numbers showed last year. And that as I started to kind of research it and figure out, hey, how much was there? And I watched him in person at camp and at the Lions preseason game. And when he uncorks one, it is unbelievable how far he can kick the ball and how high he can kick the ball. And then it was always consistency. So I started to poke around, and I brought this up on some previous shows, but I started to notice something when I was looking at the things he was good at. And it was, he had the best return rate in the NFL. So only 22% of his kicks were returned. So 78% of his kicks weren't returned. He had the longest hang time in the NFL of any qualifying punter. And then I started to look and be like, oh, other guys they brought in for workouts like Matt Bosher, that's exactly where he was in those metrics. And that it makes me think that that's more of just the priority of where Heath Farwell and Sean McDermott want this punting game to be. And that I certainly hope that Bojorquez doesn't have, last year we'd have those games where he'd have a 57-yarder and a 49-yarder and then a 26-yarder, and his average would look like it was 38. He never actually averaged 38 or 41 yards a punt. It was just that he'd have a horrible one every game that would lose us like 20, 25 yards worth of field position. And if he can harness that, so I did chat back and forth with Joe Biscaglia and asked him after this came out, it was never talent with Bojorquez. It was always consistency. Have you seen a difference? And he said, yes. He said he has seen more consistency and actually a noticeable difference in the trajectory of the ball, and that he changed up a little bit of what he was doing. So, I don't know if that's enough to fix our punting woes, but I'm at least hopeful that he can turn into something this year and make it functional.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the numbers of kickers. And again, I don't scout kickers, so I don't know. I won't be able to tell the difference in the trajectory of his ball this year. I'm not going to lie. Consistency is the issue. And it's something last year we talked a lot about the kicking game on both kicking and punting, and consistency again was the issue. And if he can fix that and be a consistent punter, I don't need him to blast the ball. I do like a little bit of hang time. Like you said, I think Bills are going to have one of the better coverage units in the league here this year. We have great special teamers. We have really good gunners. I think we'll be able to cover punts. So hang time's great. And then you trust in your team to get down there and not fill lanes and to fill lanes properly. But it's consistency. I'd rather have a guy that is consistent and reliable than being able to just bang the hell out of a ball. So if he can dial back some of that leg and get a little bit more consistency, totally down with that, because the last thing you want is for your punter to be what blows a game or blows field position for you. You want to just be able to rely on that guy to come in and do the job. I don't want to be dealing with them bringing in practice, tryouts all throughout the year again this year, because he's blowing it. So if they believe in Corey, I'm all for it. He's won now 2 battles. They've tried to replace him every way he can. He might be you referred to Dean Marlowe,
the roster cockroach,
the roster cockroach, but Bojo, your boy, man, they've been trying to get rid of him and find every excuse to get rid of him, and he sticks around. So he's probably better than fans think. If the team is keeping him around with all the guys that they brought in to take his job, he seems to outlast all of them. Reed loves him. We know from the Rockpile guys, they talk to Reed all the time. He's happy to have him on the team this year. So I'm excited. I hope that both these guys, both Bass and Bojo, can just be consistent, and that every post-game show we're not bitching about kickers and punters, because it's the last thing I want to talk about. All I want out of special teams is consistency. I don't need flashy plays. Just be consistent and control field position.
Yeah. And good to see you, Joe. You calling him Shankopotamus. I appreciate it. It's something where I think that you brought up the consistency. If you have a punter who has 3 straight 42-yard punts and another guy who has 50, 50, and 24 yards, they both average 42 yards a punt, and it looks the same on the sheet. But if that 24-yard punt is in a critical spot where you're trying to protect a lead and not let them come back, and all of a sudden you gave up a free 20 or 30 yards of field position, that can be huge. So it is critical that he shows that consistency and is able to make it, more functional in what they're doing. But it's something where I agree. I hope it's not something we're having to talk about all the time.
I can deal with coming on the post-game show and talking about Josh Allen blowing a game because he's the quarterback, the ball's in his hands. I don't want to talk about punters blowing the game. And what you just said there, 24-yard shank punt, really can change the game in a bad way. And I get so mad. And that's when I start throwing stuff at my TV, is when special teams errors cost us the game, because people talk about it being a third of the game. And I get that idea that it's a third of the game, but it's like 15% of the game. And
10 to 15% of snaps.
And punters are even less. You're getting 6% of the game. And if you are getting paid to be in the game for 6% of the game, you better do it consistently. And that's where I'm at with all kicking and specialists. I know that it's a hard job. I'm not discrediting it. It's the most mentally challenging probably part outside of playing quarterback is being a specialist, because you're only playing that little. So when you do make a mistake, you miss a field goal, you have to sit there for who knows when before you get a chance to redeem yourself. So there's a horrible mental aspect to this game for specialists, but I'm demanding consistency. I've said it. You can put it on Twitter. Aaron Quinn's demanding consistency out of both kickers this year.
I like it. So it's for our Uncle Jumbo's player spotlight for this week is one that we're hoping it doesn't make you want to go to Uncle Jumbo's. We're hoping that it's one where you're wanting to celebrate and have a nice drink to relax, not that you need to go to the Uncle Jumbo's because Corey Bohork has made your day worse. So it's just a positive way to look at it. Hopefully that's what you can enjoy and have some nice, very good vodka to enjoy your day. So what we're going to go to next is, I think kind of came to light in today's news with the trade of Yannick Ngakoue going to Minnesota. He was a guy that was out there. Everson Griffin was a player that was talked about a lot as a potential target because of his relationship with Leslie Frazier. And, you can never have enough, pass rushers that's out there. With all the names that are out there, and there's, several that have been thrown around. You hear Logan Ryan, you hear Jadeveon Clowney, even the lower level, somebody like Ross Cockrell, who is a former Buffalo Bill. Do you think, if you had to guess right now, will anyone of note be added to the 53-man roster before cutdown day?
I don't think so. If it was going to be one of the lower, like a Ross Cockrell, I think that already happens at this point, because you want to get that guy in, because it's not like what we talked about at the beginning. If you bring in Ross Cockrell, you're expecting him to be a contributor to this team at some point this year. So you have probably already wanted him in, getting his legs together, see how he is, where he's at, and getting him acclimated, because there's a lot of communication, especially on that part of the defense. So you want to have guys, that you're bringing them in to contribute, you want to have them communicating during this period of time. But on that list, I'm still holding out for Clowney. I'm not going to lie. I would cut Trent Murphy or trade him. And I sort of pounded the table for Trent Murphy last week. And I like Trent Murphy, and I think he's going to be a productive member of this defense this year. But that's the one scenario where get rid of him. I don't care. I think Clowney's a beast. I know a lot of people don't like him. I think he fits exactly what this defense hasn't had since Sean McDermott took over. Jerry Hughes just hasn't been able to either stay healthy or be as productive as I'd like him to be. And I think Clowney with Hughes would just be something that would terrorize other teams. And that is what I want to see. I want to see terror in the quarterbacks on other teams. So Clowney I'm still holding out hope. I don't see it. I think he probably wants a number that the Bills don't want to rent him for this year. And to the conversation that we had, they still got to get Milano and Trey White done. So I don't think they're going to do anything splashy. And then seeing that Cunningham deal today, I think Milano's number went up maybe a little bit. So I think that makes it a little bit harder and puts them in a tighter spot. So I don't think there's anything splashy that's going to happen. I think Bean likes his picks too much to start moving things around for picks. So I think they're going to stay put. They like this roster. They've been building for 2020 for 3 years. I don't know that you go and scramble around now before the season starts to try to fix something that's not broken.
Yeah. So I think that there's a couple different players that are intriguing in a vacuum. I think Logan Ryan's a good player. I think he's very smart. I think he's capable. I think he's better than Taron Johnson. I don't think he's so much better that we need to splurge on that money. I'm really torn on Jadeveon Clowney. I get why people don't love him and that he hasn't been consistent all the time. I think his talent is exceptional. I think with coaches like Eric Washington, Leslie Frazier, Sean McDermott, you could maximize that. There is a number where I'd be on board. I don't know what that number is. It's closer to 10
whatever
million.
Brandon Bean tells you it is.
Yeah, seriously. It's closer to 10 million than it is the 17, 18 million he's looking for. But if he got to the point where he wanted to play, was just looking for a year to make himself look good to try to sign next spring, and they could get it down closer to where Trent Murphy's money was and you weren't sacrificing it, I'd be open to it. I don't think that happens. I don't think that they're going to be able to find that number that Clowney would be okay for. And then you get into anybody else. I just don't know that it's worth risking where that Matt Milano money and Trey White money needs to go to. So you brought up Zach Cunningham earlier. For anybody who's not aware, Zach Cunningham is an off-ball linebacker for the Texans who signed an average deal of $14.5 million a year. He's not a pass rusher. He's not the Von Miller, Shaq Barrett numbers that skew some of the linebacker numbers. He is an off-ball linebacker and just got paid a lot of money. I think Milano's
really good.
I think
good. He's really
good. He's very good. I think Milano's as good as him.
Yeah, no, when I saw that news come out, it scared me a little. I hate when teams that aren't good at doing contracts set markets for us to have to deal with, because Milano's agent's going to take that to Brandon Bean, and whether or not those negotiations are going on right now or not, I don't know. But I didn't like seeing that, because it is going to get a little tight with the Trey White, Matt Milano thing. And I think that does change if there was some stuff that they're looking at. We'd probably from Ansa's agent, but that the Bills were in on that, which isn't totally unbelievable. Brandon Bean likes to have a rotation of defensive linemen, so not out of the realm of possibilities. But if one of those deals was out there kind of in the works, you see this deal come across your ticker for Cunningham, and maybe you pull it back a little and say, hey, well, defensive line is not broken. I don't want to go paying a guy bigger money this year, and then I'm going to have to eat that, and I'm not going to be able to pay Trey or something along those lines. So I think some of those deals might get pulled back. But another point on Clowney, a lot of people don't like that his inability to stay on the field. I think the Bills would be a great fit for that, because you're not asking him to play a lot of snaps. You could bring him in as just a pass. He's great against the run, but you could bring him in certain situations, and he doesn't have to be an every down guy because you have the rotation here. So I think it's probably one of the better fits that's out there for a team that he wants to play for a competitor. And I know nationally the Bills probably aren't seen as a competitor, but on paper, at least this defense,
players know.
Yeah, and it's probably one of the better defenses that he could come into today. So I'm going to hold out hope, and I'm going to sit there and think about it all night, every night until the season starts. But
he's going to sign with someone.
Yeah, I might even get back on Twitter if he signs, just to celebrate it with all of you guys.
Yeah, so it's actually, Joe brought up a good point here. I was going to speak to that. It's something where the rotation of players is a big piece of what they're doing. And that if he feels like he could come in and play a really specialized role in certain situations, stay fresh, make himself look good, he might see that as an opportunity to be able to cash in next spring. And, we'll see. I know that allegedly Cleveland offered him a lot of money, and I'm a little confused why he wouldn't want to line up opposite Myles Garrett and the attention that would bring. And I don't know exactly what he's looking for. I'm not sure what he's prioritizing. I don't know if it's long-term guarantees, which obviously the Bills are not going to offer.
I don't want to do that.
The Bills would only be offering us a one-year deal, and it would be trying to swap out Trent Murphy's $8 million to bring in someone like him. I just don't see anything beyond there. So maybe somebody backs up the Brinks truck. I don't know that I see it. So I'm curious to see where he ends up. And I'll be a little frustrated if it ends up being some freebie deal for Baltimore or Kansas City or one of the teams we're going to have to face to have this season really matter or be exciting. So we'll see where that goes from that point. So one of the final segments we want to get into here is just being able to help Aaron see what are the things that were the worst pieces of Twitter that you missed, and that, Aaron has, taken a moment to bring himself back and to understand that there are more important things in social media. So I'm very excited for you that you found that, but I don't want you to miss out on some of the terrible, terrible things that take place on Twitter. So for this week, the winner actually happened immediately after our last show, and it was brought to our attention. A lot of people know Buffwagon that's around on multiple different social media handles. So I'll give Eric credit for finding this. Our friend Manish Mehta, who has his own challenges, I think he lost his credential of going in and covering the team. He posted Sam Darnold would be the best quarterback in the AFC East, even if he threw left-handed. And I bring that up one because it's hysterically terrible.
Yeah.
I don't think he's the best quarterback in the AFC East right now, let alone if he threw left-handed. But of course, when he did that, every member of Bills Mafia took the bait and goes nuts. And I love the Bills more than anything. I'm not related to. I'm just as insecure and defensive about it as anybody else. We are so insecure and
we're so bad.
Anytime someone would throw something out there and says anything about Josh Allen, about the team, about Stephon Diggs, whatever it is, we take the bait every time.
When I was on Twitter in a past life, I would have some very mediocre, mostly pragmatic takes like, this guy's good, he's average, and just my blah, you're an idiot. Fred Jackson's a Hall of Famer, but you know what I mean? Like, just getting killed. Bills fans, you guys, we take the bait way too easy. And that makes the PFF guys and all these guys.
Manish,
from the trolls to the guys that are pretty serious. PFF guys are serious football guys, but they live off of this stuff. You guys, we feed right into it. If they just put out something, look at this bad Josh Allen pass, they know that 2,000 Bills fans are going to get their panties all in a bunch and be all in their mentions all day and retweet it and just show it everywhere because we just can't help ourselves. That Joe Miller, yes, we do overreact. The name of their show, we do. We are very overreactionary fan base, and we eat right into it. But I'm not sure who is a bigger slight that he was trying to point. Was it at Josh Allen or Cam Newton? I think because the national media is not giving Josh Allen the credit as being the best quarterback in the AFC East right now. And on a serious note, I think if you had asked me today who the best quarterback in the AFC is, I don't know. I want to find out this year because I like Sam Darnold. I think Bills Mafia is a little bit harsh on him on Twitter because
he's got an incredibly raw deal.
Yes, he's got a bad deal. That is a dysfunctional franchise still right now. They're getting a rash of injuries. His wide receiving core looks like Josh Allen's year one wide receiving core right now. So I feel bad for the kid. I think he's a good dude. I liked him in the draft process. I think as far as just in a vacuum quarterbacks, I think he's a super talented quarterback. I like a lot of the traits that he possesses. I think he's right there with Josh Allen, and he has the potential to be just as good as what we think Josh Allen can be. And then obviously Cam Newton has his issues of the past few years, but he's already shown that he can be a better quarterback than either one of them have shown in the NFL level. So I think it's there is no one clear cut person, and I'm glad I'm not on Twitter to hear the responses to me not just sitting here pounding the table for Josh Allen. But Manish, man, you guys gotta just him and the Omar Kellys of the world, man. I bought into it too. I was in their mentions from times to times, but you got to get out of their mentions because it is feeding them. This is what they want, the reaction from us going nuts, telling them that they're idiots.
Oh yeah, no, they just want the clicks, and we give it to them every time.
Every time.
Yeah, it is what it is. Chris is in here watching, asking who is going to win the Bills and the Jets. We will get to that, but that's a good reminder to be able to talk about some of the upcoming schedule. I have a special guest coming on this week. We're going to do a cover one kind of fantasy show to be able to help for anybody who has slacked and has not done preparation for their fantasy draft and has a fantasy draft next weekend. We're going to talk about where each of the Bills skill position players fit into fantasy draft. And then I'm going to ask our special guest for some of their, prime under the radar guys who are maybe that they like a little bit more than the average consensus. So
Zach Moss, baby.
Yeah. Yes. So that for anyone who knows, that's a hint of who the person is, as a huge Zach Moss fan that you may see out in the Twitter world. So we'll announce that here as the week goes. Then as we get into the regular rhythm of things, we're going to have some special guests on each week to be able to talk about the previews for the game. We'll do those on Wednesday nights with Connor Rogers coming up. That's going to be jumping on for the preview show for the Jets game. And at that point, I will describe just how much I think the Bills are going to beat the Jets by. So we'll get into that each week and then have our normal post-game show. So looking forward to getting into that. A couple housekeeping items. If you guys have any other questions, throw them out there. We'll answer those before we wrap up here. But just a couple housekeeping items. We did have a couple fun contests going on. So I was running a Bills Legends jersey giveaway that we have 2 winners that I'm excited to announce. So the Bruce Smith vintage jersey is going to Fourth Quarter Gaming. And the Thurman Thomas jersey in the newer style is going to Robert Swales. So congratulations to those guys. It was a very scientific process of my daughter pointing at the computer screen. So excited to be able to do that. I'll get connected with you guys in DMs. I also had some other jerseys that were ones that just needed a good home, and was asking if anybody wanted to go through the process of doing a nameplate swap, or just had somebody who wanted to be able to rep the Bills but didn't have a jersey. So I had a handful of those, some Sammy Watkins, some EJ Manuel, some Tyrod Taylor, a Willis McGahee. So had some folks that I reached out to, Platinos Froster, Andy Endzone, Rachacha 1414 and Jayhawk, Ryan Lampman, reached out to all those guys. Excited to find some good homes for some Bills jerseys so more people can rep the Bills. So congratulations to everybody. Looking forward to being able to get those out here in the mail this week. And Eric has a fun giveaway coming up as well, that we're going to be doing a gotta go watch the film sweatshirt that's going to be given away. And Aaron, why don't you tell the folks about a video that Eric's dropping here in just a little bit?
Yeah, so Eric has a premiere coming up, I think at 10:16, if I remember, here on YouTube, right on the channel. You can go check it out. It's going to be his new Mario Addison video. It's something that I was excited. I do the graphics for the videos and stuff, so he told me that it was coming out, and I haven't gotten to watch it yet. He drops them. If you don't know and you aren't a member of the Slack channel, head over to cover1.net first of all and become a premium member, and you can get into the Slack channel. I know it's something I talk about all the time. You've probably heard it from me a bunch here. Do that, but he dropped in the Slack channel for people to watch. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but he will premiere those videos a little early to the premium members. But it is premiering tonight, 10:15, I think, right when we get off of here, it's going to premiere. So that's something that I'm going to go make myself another cup of tea and sit down and kick back and watch the Mario Addison video. Because Eric, man, somebody in the Slack channel or somebody in the YouTube comments called it, he's a doctor when it comes to this stuff. The breakdowns he does. And while you're waiting for that video to drop after this, go check out the one he did. He broke down the highlight of the Andre Roberts touchdown the other day, from Josh Allen, what he saw out of Josh Allen in that brief little clip. And that's what separates the Cover One, brand from a lot of what's out there for content. Is he can take a small 1-minute clip from Bill's social media and show you something that Josh Allen's been working on, or show you some of the play design concepts that they're working on, and just taking those little points out of that. So he's got a couple of those new ones. If you haven't seen them, they're up on the YouTube channel now, but definitely check out that Mario Addison one here dropping tonight.
Just a couple quick questions we'll get to before we wrap things up. James Parsons on YouTube was asking, if we struggle to put up points, does Daboll make it the whole season? So the quick answer is yes. I don't see any scenario that he doesn't last the season. And the reason I pick this up is I think that several of the guests that I've had on, or shows I've had the opportunity to go on, really bring up how significant of a difference there is in the perception of Brian Daboll overall versus within Bills Mafia. And that, think about the kind of prospect that most saw Josh Allen as and where he is now. People associate that to Brian Daboll and to his development and success. When I asked Brad Kelly asked me, what's his worst case scenario for Joe Douglas firing a coach and hiring somebody as the new head coach for the Jets? His worst case scenario was that it would be Brian Daboll and he would get Sam Darnold figured out and headed on the right path. When I was on with Joe Marino, I talked about the fact that I think Bills fans should be rooting that no matter what, Brian Daboll is not the offensive coordinator in 2021, because either he had a good enough season where the Bills had a good season, Josh Allen looked great, and that means he's going to get credit for Josh Allen looking great and is going to get head coaching offers, or he's didn't, and that means we're probably not going to want to have him back. So I actually think that he will for sure be here, and I think that he's going to get a head coaching job and isn't going to be the coordinator next year because he's better than people think.
Yeah, I can't see any changes coming in 2020. I think this team's pretty locked in with what they've got. I think they're locked into this offense, and maybe if the wheels totally come off and it's looking like it did his first year here, where the talent was so bad that it was historically one of the worst offenses in NFL history, maybe there's a scenario. I can't see that happening again. And God, if that happens, I'm going to need a ton of Uncle Jumbos to get me through. 2020 has been bad enough.
Sean McDermott isn't a Rex Ryan kind of guy that I think is going to you would have to do something pretty egregious to get fired midseason by Sean McDermott, in my opinion.
No, I think they're rolling with him, and I do think the scenario is probably more likely, which you said, which is the Bills probably have to prepare for who's going to be his successor after this here, because I do think he'll probably get a job somewhere else, just because offensive minds are sought after. People that can perceived whether or not it's true, develop a quarterback are highly sought after. So if Josh Allen takes the step that we think he's going to take, and the Bills become a 12-win team, say, people are going to be knocking on his door, and they're going to try to take him away.
Well, and that's going to flip around from where it was previously, because when McDermott first got here, we didn't get his first or second or maybe even third choice at offensive coordinator, because it wasn't perceived as a desirable job. And if it gets to the point where Brian Daboll does such a good job that he gets a head coaching job because the Bills went to the playoffs and Josh Allen looked good, and they have this cadre of wide receivers and a stable offensive line and 2 good young running backs, there's a lot of offensive minds who are going to want that job. And that's going to be a very desirable position and easy to be able to bring in somebody very talented and innovative and young. So it's exciting to be able to take a look at what they have to offer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So anything else that we have going on here tonight before we close out for all the folks here listening?
Well, somebody said it earlier in the chat. I can't put up the chats like you can, but just go ahead and smash the like button and make sure that you're subscribed and that you click that notification bell, because the new platform we're on doesn't have a waiting room. So make sure that you're subscribed and notified, because as soon as we go live, you will get that notification that we're here live. And I like this new platform that we're using, and I want to continue to use it, but it doesn't work if you guys aren't in here. So appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Super cool. And love hanging out, talking Bills with you guys.
Yeah, this was pretty exciting and a lot of fun. I tried to play around with getting the chat up there as we were going, so hopefully did a good job with it. But we'll do more with that, asking questions as we go. So again, for everybody over at cover1.net, like Aaron said, rate, review, give us a rating. If you know somebody who likes the Bills and you think they're kind of getting excited for football coming back, tell them about our show. Tell them to come check us out. If they want to get caught up, you can go through all the position previews. You can check out everything we have going on. Jump in for the preview shows each week and the post-game show. Let them know what we have going on. For Aaron Quinn, for Eric Turner, for everybody at cover1.net, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.